So, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, the winner of the 2019 Game Awards and one of From Software's best. One of my favorite games of all time too. The game has aged wonderfully, and today I want to talk about the bosses because I recently replayed the game and I think they not only hold up really well, but are still some of From Software's finest. The boss roster is really amazing and most of these fights are fun to do. So expect a lot of gushing about these amazing bosses. Also, another disclaimer, I will not rank the inner versions of some bosses we got in the DLC patch separately from their OG or normal version. I will just rank them together and use the inners to elevate those bosses. With all that said, have fun with the video. Before we talk about the fun parts though, we have to get through the shit first. And the Ape Duo is an example of utter dog shit. This is a boss I have literally like zero redeeming qualities for, or I don't see any. It's a lazily reused main boss, basically both of his phases at once. It's just placed very weirdly. It doesn't work at all. There's no separation in the area and multiple enemies are already pretty bad for Sekiro's combat. And it's just so unfun to play. The only fun I ever get out of this boss is just replaying Guardian Ape again because that boss is amazing. But yeah, I don't even want to talk about this boss. Can we just move on? Even though I placed this boss in the bad tier, I don't think it's particularly bad. Quite the opposite. I think it's a really solid puzzle boss. The fight consists of you having to kill 4 different monkeys. And every monkey has its own little gimmick that you need to, well, find out and defeat him. There is the green monkey with very good hearing. You can stun by using the big bell. Then there is the monkey with the purple kimono with very bad eyesight. You need to lure him into the dark room where you can kill him. Then there is the orange monkey who basically just alerts all the other monkeys, so it's good to take him out first, but I mostly take him out last nowadays. And then there is the invisible monkey. You either take out as your first monkey if you know about the gimmick on repeat playthroughs, or you take out as your last because you won't know it. Well, at least it was the case for me. That's also the issue with this fight. The fight is a solid puzzle boss on the first run, but on replays it has like zero value, and this is why I think it deserves to be in the bad tier, because it's an interesting idea and I applaud From Software trying something different, but I just get nothing out of this fight on repeat playthroughs. Is this a lazy reskin of a late game boss? Absolutely. Does it take something away from the late game boss by being here? Yes, definitely. Is it still a really fun boss? 100%. It's Sekiro after all. Nearly everything here is fun. Well, this boss has the moveset of Corrupted Monk, phase 1 to be specific, of the main fight. But it has this really unique feature with probably the biggest posture bar in the game. So you really have to go and drain a lot of her HP for it not to regenerate back up instantly. Besides that, it's just a really fun boss because Corrupted Monk is just really good. So what do you expect? It's fun. I like it. That's it. I will also say it's a bit underwhelming for this long path towards Ashina deaths, often considered to be the worst path, but I do like fighting it, and it fits. This ghostly figure being in this village, yeah, it fits. Could be worse. Also like that Orin maybe foreshadows it a bit. That's really cool about it. It's fine. I'm really sorry. I don't think Lady Butterfly should be an B tier boss. I think Lady Butterfly should be an A tier boss. But there is just one aspect about Lady Butterfly that kind of ruins the fight, or doesn't ruin it but puts it down for me. But we'll talk about it soon. First we have this very basic but fun phase 1 where you just do deflect her combos. She can't be your first major boss if you go a certain way, which I did in my first playthrough and it led to a lot of pain. But yeah, she's basically teaching you parries and perilous attacks, so that's fine. The real issue starts in phase 2. She has a fake out death and a phase 2 after that. And The phase 2 is a really good phase, especially those follow-up butterflies she sends out after doing her combos. You have to dodge at the beginning or end of the combos are amazing. One of the best aspects about her. The issue with the phase 2 is the clone attack. If she did it once, and you could just get rid of them with the seeds, everything would be fine. But she can do it, I don't know, I think she can do it infinitely. And the problem is it basically resets the fight minus the HP bar. And you have to start from scratch, which is just really annoying. In my No Kuro's Charm and Demon Bell run, she did it 3 times in the fight and it was terrible, annoying, I hate it. And that's why I think she's only B tier worthy. But still a really good boss. Her OST also slaps, and she's really interesting story-wise. There is one word to describe the Divine Dragon. Cinema. But first we have to start with the dragons of the old tree or something. Whatever, who cares? They exist. They look pretty cool. I have no idea what they are supposed to be, but I like doing the stealth kill and killing all of them. It's fun. But the real fight begins after the first phase and it's beautiful. Yes, this boss is in a great tier. It's a low grade tier, but it's still in the great tier because I think this fight is genuinely amazing. Dodging the projectiles the dragon shoots is just satisfying, and deflecting the lightning bolts is always a pleasure. The music is also one of the best in the game and the dragon looks so awesome. And challenge is also kind of existent because the phase 2 in the phase 2, basically 2.5 or something, is genuinely kind of hard to deflect all of it. Killed me a few times in some challenge runs. So it's not super easy either, and it's so fun to deflect when the Divine Dragons goes insane. It's just a very well done spectacle and gimmick fight. And I think besides maybe Rykard from Elden Ring and the Ice Worm from AC6, this is definitely my favorite one. I think the next boss should introduce himself.
My name is Gyoubu.
Well, yeah. Gyoubu is just a really good tutorial boss and I think he's really underrated. He has very fun to deflect moves and he teaches you parrying quite well. Maybe not as well as Genichiro or even Butterfly, but well enough. And it's just really fun to do and he gets more and more fun for me, which is very rare for early game bosses. He has not the hardest to deflect combos, but still quite challenging to fully deflect when you have, for example, No Kuro's Charm. What is also really cool and unique about the fight is the grappling mechanic. Few bosses utilize it in Sekiro, but not too many. He's also not a traditional boss on foot, but you fight him on horse, which is also really cool and adds the mobility aspect in Sekiro because you're quite fast. Phase 2 also adds some really cool attacks like this jump attack with the horse, which is just so fun to deflect, like I can't even describe. Besides that, he has a really cool OST and I just love his arena. You fight another boss here too, but I just love this battlefield with all the crows, it's just amazing. So yeah, Gyoubu is a really underrated and good boss. The Great Shinobi Owl is probably the most important point in the story of Sekiro. Here you either decide whether you obey the Iron Code and stay loyal to your father, or whether you betray the Iron Code and help Kuro out. If you do what most people did and disobey your father, you will have to fight him on the roofs of Ashina Castle. And it's a really good and epic fight. His attacks are very fun to deflect, he has a lot of moves and follow-ups, and probably the best aspect about this boss fight is that he fights like a shinobi. He uses his dirty tricks like disabling your healing, he uses prosthetic tools same as you, he uses poison pools, and most importantly, at the beginning of phase 2, when you drain phase 1, he begs for life just to ambush you and then proceeds to use smoke clouds during phase 2. I also really enjoy the OST and the setting. It's probably the most high stakes moment in the story so far, and definitely not the last. The biggest issue with Owl is not that he's bad, but that there is a certain other boss later in the game that is better in every way and perfects this fight in every regard, but we will talk about him very soon. Staying in the same arena, the Shura ending boss is the other side of the coin, basically if you side with your father and betray Kuro. This boss fight consists of 3 phases, and one of them is Emma and 2 of them are Ishin. The first phase is just Emma doing her combat arts, Emma the Gentle Blade. She has a lot of quick and deadly slashes, and then there are the devastating grabs she has. This phase is amazing because it teaches you moves that will be important in the phases going forward, because Emma of course uses Ashina arts just like Ishin does. She's not only an annoying rumbag you have to do every time you need to refight Ishin, but a learning tool, which I really appreciate. Also, she has one of the best soundtracks in the game. It's very sad and somber. The next fight, Ishin Ashina, is a watered down version from the Sword Saint, but still has a few tricks up his sleeve. He has, of course, Emma's grabs, and he has this amazing move where he dodges your hit and counters, so if you just R1 spam recklessly, he will punish that. But besides that, phase 1 is just a warm-up. And yeah, he will warm you up in the phase 2 because now he fights with fire. He has this deadly flurry combo he always does when new phase begins, but he can do it anytime. He can do it anytime he wants, so it's not like it's only a one-time thing. And besides that, he has other fire projectiles or fire slashes. He's very aggressive in this fight and definitely a hard boss, but most people tend to overlook him because Sword Saint is definitely more of a highlight than he is. With all this said, this is still the first amazing tier boss, and I think he's really good and deserves more praise than he gets most of the time. In my eyes, Guardian Ape might be the most underrated boss in the game. Most agree that he's great, or at least good, but I don't think most people give him the credit he deserves because I think this boss is genuinely amazing. He has 2 distinct phases which both play very differently. In the first phase, he fights like a feral and wild beast, just trying to kill you with everything he has. You can deflect in this phase, and it's definitely viable, but it's mostly about draining the HP bar he has and kill him that way. This boss also utilizes the grapple, which I personally don't do that often in this fight, unlike in Gyoubu. And he has a few grab attacks, especially this one where he jumps and tries to roll over you. This one can be quite tricky to dodge, but once you figure it out, it's really satisfying. After you defeat the first phase and perform a Shinobi execution my ass, he stands up, being controlled by the parasite centipede inside him. What is really cool about the second phase is the subtle detail that he moves in a centipede weird way, which is just super cool. I love From Software's attention to detail. Besides that, this phase is 100% based on deflections, and it's very obvious because he now uses the sword we used to decapitate him in the first phase. The Terror Scream attack I find alright. It can be annoying if he spams it, but honestly, sometimes it can be quite fun that you have to react to it quickly and run out of his reach. It's an okay attack. Now, the most important aspect of the second phase is you being able to deflect this one attack. It's probably one of the most satisfying attacks to deflect in the game, if not the most satisfying. And if you equip a spear, you can absolutely demolish his posture bar. In general, Shinobi tools work like wonders against this boss. For example, Firecrackers in phase 1 also completely stunlock him if you do it properly. This boss is probably the most susceptible to Shinobi tools from all the bosses. And yeah, with this, I think Guardian Ape is an amazing boss and definitely underrated. Demon of Hatred is another amazing boss in Sekiro. Maybe not as underrated as Guardian Ape, but still very underrated, because I think this boss genuinely deserves more praise than he gets most of the time. This boss consists of 3 phases and is generally considered one of the hardest bosses in the game, which I would definitely agree with. However, most of the time it is very fun. I think 3 phases with that big of a health bar can be quite a lot, and I wouldn't mind maybe taking away some of his HP, but I still say it's pretty fun regardless. Demon of Hatred is also one of the most cinematic bosses in the entire game. Most of his amazing fire moves, like the phase 3 fire ring, or just any fire move he does in general, especially the jump, oh my god, it's so satisfying you running out of it, and grappling in again. it's just a very cinematically pleasing boss. I love that this fight is quite different, but I heavily disagree with the sentiment that this is a Bloodborne boss in Sekiro. It makes no sense whatsoever. This boss is absolutely designed for Sekiro, with being very mobile and you still being able to deflect quite a bit of his attacks, which is even helpful for this combo. So yeah, I don't know what most people are about. I guess it's different because it's not a 1v1 duel against Samurai or Shinobi, but it's still a fight designed for Sekiro. This fight is amazing lore-wise, him being the sculptor and consumed by the hatred and basically being a failed Shura. I think it's very awesome. And Demon of Hatred also has my favorite soundtrack in the game, especially second phase. That shit just hits hard. So yeah, Demon of Hatred is just really good, and I think his placement here is well deserved. Corrupted Monk is probably one of the most fun bosses in the game, with some of the most fun to deflect attacks in the entirety of Sekiro. The first phase is just the introduction phase and something you already know from fighting her illusion in Ashina Depths, or better said, Mibu Village. After you deplete the first health bar, it starts getting interesting. She fades away and now you have to fight ominous shadow clones she sends out, and deflecting these is just so fun. Guys, seriously, I recommend trying it. If you don't want it, sure, you can just skip her. I mean, everyone knows it, so not really a big secret. But yeah, phase 2 is really fun. Deflecting those clones really surprised me. It just adds a lot to the fight. If you decide to stealth blow phase 2 or fight her regularly, she will go into phase 3 now. Now she is overtaken by the centipede and her moveset becomes really unpredictable. Sometimes she decides to flail around, sometimes she decides to do her standard normal combos, and sometimes she finishes either with the centipede spewing attack or just with a normal finisher. Also, she has this long combo she always does at the beginning and sometimes randomly, which is just so fun to fully deflect. Yeah, besides that, she's just a really cool boss visually, has probably my third favorite soundtrack in the game, especially the phase 2, and a beautiful area. But that is given with Fountainhead's aesthetics. Yeah, nothing more to say, it's an amazing boss. The regular version of Genichiro is already a great boss, but while he is already really good, I will be mostly talking about the inner version for this video. But yeah, as I said, he's already a great boss. He is really cool story-wise because he's basically your rival who humiliated you in the beginning and you are now getting your revenge. And he is the perfect teacher who will force you to adapt to the combat or fail. So that makes him a really good boss. However, the inner version is not just a great boss, it's an absolute peak boss. The boss receives a lot of mix-ups to his moveset, especially very notable this combo he does. If you deflect the finisher, you just get to punish his Mikiri or just regular punish. However, in the inner version, he extends it into another flurry, which is just really good. Besides that, he feels at least way more aggressive and has the best attack in the game to deflect, very likely, or one of the best at least, being Sakura Dance. It's just pure fun and it's absolutely awesome. Phase 2, The Way of Tomoe, is very scary on a first run. I remember being pranked by a friend that he has a phase after that when he wakes up in a cutscene. That shit absolutely scared me. But phase 3 is not very hard in the regular fight. You just deflect lightnings and that's it. However, in the inner version, he can deflect the lightning back and that makes him quite a threat. Besides that, he is way more aggressive in that phase and the phase feels tankier. So the phase goes from the pushover phase to probably the hardest phase in the fight. With all that said, Genichiro is not just a great boss, because his regular version is, but he's an absolute peak boss and one of the best From Software has ever made. Probably very surprisingly for many, Isshin is not the #1 spot. However, he's the #2 spot and still one of my favorite bosses of all time. There is just one boss I slightly prefer. That doesn't mean that Isshin is really worse in any way. Isshin at #1 is a completely fair and understandable take. Isshin is one of the best bosses ever created. He is the ultimate test of all the combat skills you have to learn during the entire game. Genichiro, seeing no way out after being bested by you even with his mortal blade, uses his life to summon Isshin from the underworld. And now Isshin has only one one goal: to obliterate you. You get to fight phase 1 first. It's not very hard, but the flow of the combat in phase 1 is really fun and just really enjoyable. And now I have to talk about the inner Ishin version. Inner Ishin is probably slightly better than the regular Ishin because it's just more of him and it's a bit upgraded. However, I think he's probably the most disappointing inner by far, because inner Owl and inner Genichiro add so much to the moveset, while Ishin just adds weird mix-ups to phase 1 which are alright but don't make the fight that much better, and a cool attack in phase 2 which is admittedly really fun to dodge. However, yeah, phase 1 is not too hard. After you defeat phase 1, a sword clashing duel, you get to phase 2. Probably the best phase in the entire game, minus maybe the one from the number 1 spot. He summons a halberd from the ground, and now he has incredibly long and awesome combo strings, finishing on Mikiris. You can either deflect or Mikiri counter, obviously. Then he has absolutely wild combat arts, and he has a Glock. With all that, he creates probably one of the most tense phases of all time. In phase 3, he has lightning, like Genichiro, which most of the time just make the fight way easier, but it's still very cinematic, fighting the final showdown in the Flower of Fields where you first lost, and with lightnings in the background. The arena is obviously very beautiful. However, I will say his soundtrack is not as memorable and great as some of the others in Sekiro and the other games, which is a shame because this boss really deserves a very memorable soundtrack. Ishin is awesome, he's an awesome character, and he's just an awesome boss and one of the best of all time, if you ask me. Still, with all these great bosses, I had no doubt Allfather would be the number 1 spot. He is not only my favorite boss in Sekiro, but one of my favorite bosses of all time, being around the 4th place. Inner Owl or Allfather is one of the best bosses ever created. The regular Owl version is already one of the best bosses in gaming for me, but I still think I would slightly prefer the Sword Saint. However, the Inner Owl version we got in the DLC patch with the gauntlets is one of the most tightly and perfectly designed bosses I have ever seen. He has his normal strikes, the combos you already know from the Shinobi Owl version, perilous attacks, and just overall a very fun moveset in phase 1. But this is just the warm-up. In phase 2 he goes absolutely crazy. Now he uses his blue owl to disappear and ambush you from above or from the side. Then he has his amazing flaming owl, in which in the inner version you either have to jump above or dash through it, which is just awesome and keeps you on your toes. In the inner version, the thing that makes the fight absolutely perfect and go from incredible to one of the best bosses ever are the Mistraven attacks. In phase 1 he just goes quite easy, he disappears and does some quick slashes, but it's not too hard to learn the timing for that. However, in phase 2 he goes absolutely crazy with them, disappearing, throwing shurikens, appearing again, and having a lot of variations of the combos. Besides that, he has the regular combos like his Shadow Rush he already has in the original, which can be either deflected or Mikiri countered, and it's just overall an absolutely fun, amazing boss to play. He is my second favorite soundtrack in the game. Owl is an amazing character in the story and one of the most interesting ones, and I don't know, what can I say? Guys, look at this. Doesn't this look like some of the most fun shit you ever saw in a video game? I don't know, to me it does. With all that said, I think it's safe to say that Allfather is one of the best bosses ever created, and added with the Inner Owl update, it's just absolute perfection. Thank you so much for watching the video. With all these Souls-likes coming out and From Software releasing banger after banger, it's awesome going back to the older games and seeing just how well they aged. And Sekiro aged like fine wine. It's still one of the most fun games I've ever played, and the boss roster is just insanely stacked, still holding some of my favorite bosses of all time. So yeah, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. It would mean so much to me and it supports the channel greatly. More content will be coming soon, and the next video will be about Demon Souls and talking about the Valley of Defilement, because I personally think it's an area that most people hate, but it's way better than most people give it credit for. So yeah, until then, thanks so much for watching again, and see you soon guys. Bye!